Hi, thanks for joining me. Today in Cooking Together Live, I'm going to make a Arame carrot and onion saute. It's basically a very typical Japanese side dish and also is used in macrobiotic cooking. And so I guess I consider this kind of like a macrobiotic cooking lesson. All you need for this recipe is an onion. This is just a small to medium onion. About 3 carrots, 2 really large carrots or 3 medium carrots. And then about a big handful of Arame. This is a seaweed that is in the kelp family, and I think. And when you rehydrate it, it looks like this. So it starts out dried and then it gets much bigger. So I actually weighed it. It was a 1/2 ounce. So you don't need a lot, but you know, it was like a little handful, not that much. Rehydrate it for about 5 minutes and then drain it. You can use that water that you drained out to water your plants because it's got a lot of vitamins and minerals in it. And I'll tell you more about Arame once we get cooking. So what you want to do is slice the onion. Oh, besides the onion, carrots, and Arame, you also need some untoasted sesame oil. You could use extra virgin olive oil if you don't have sesame oil. And then something like cocoa amino soy sauce or shoyu or tamari. Some kind of salty seasoning would be great. Cocoa aminos is soy free, so that's why I'm going to use it. And you'll need about a pinch of salt. So get some sea salt. Okay. So I'm just going to slice the onions, take the peel off, of course. You can save your onion pieces to put in vegetable stock later. And now usually I leave this root end intact if I'm going to do a diced onion, but since we're making slices, I'm actually going to cut that little piece out and put that in your vegetable stock. And it's not that it's not edible, it's just going to hold the pieces together. So when I'm doing sliced onion, be careful because that was probably not too safe what I just did. You don't want the pieces to hang together. So now I'm going to slice along the ridges. These are probably like 1/8 inch wide, pretty thinly sliced. And I'll do the same with this half. Once you get about halfway around, you can start tilting it. You want to kind of cut down as straight down onto the board as you can for safety reasons. And I'm going to preheat my pan on medium heat for a couple minutes. And next we'll slice the carrots. As long as my carrots are clean looking and organically grown, I don't tend to peel them. So if there's any blemishes, you can kind of cut those out. What we're going to do is a matchstick cut. A couple different ways you can do that. I'm going to do mine this way that's taught in macrobiotic cooking. So you get a real nice cross section of the vegetable. I'm slicing the carrot on the bias. And then I'll show you how there's a couple different ways you can cut these into matchsticks. I'm going to show you the fast way and I'll show you the slow way because you can do it either way, whichever is more comfortable. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to get the onions started. So this has been preheating. We'll put maybe a couple of teaspoons of sesame oil, enough to just coat the bottom of the pan. And then you can put a couple onions in, see if the oil is ready. If it sizzles, That's pretty sizzly. Then you can put the rest of them in. And now I'm going to put a generous pinch of salt. And these are some cooking chopsticks that are fun to use. You can also just use a saute paddle or a wooden spoon. What I'm trying to do here is separate the slices into individual pieces. That way they'll cook more evenly. Another way of making this is you could add in some burdock root. We actually just found some frozen at the Japanese market. You can put that in right after the carrots. It takes a lot longer to cook than carrots do. Okay, let those continue and I'll show you how to do the carrots. So this is kind of the slower way, which is a good way of making matchsticks. You stack a few pieces of the carrot. And so I might do some of them that way just to show. And then this, if all of your carrots are still lined up from when you sliced them, you can kind of hold them together a little bit while you slice. And just kind of go down the row. And that does a pretty good job. It looks like I just had one or two that didn't get matchsticked, but that's pretty good. So we'll continue on here. I'm going to try to keep those lined up so we can do that same thing, cutting on the bias. I'll keep track of the onions here. I think I'm going to turn this down a little bit. They're starting to brown. Okay, gotta get my carrots in there. I'm gonna turn that down off so I don't burn it. And this might be enough, these two, we'll see. I'm using a nice Japanese vegetable knife. It's a Nakiri style, Nakiri. A lot of people ask me about my knife. The brand that I have, NHS, isn't made anymore, but you can get similar ones from Japan. I think that's about enough. I usually do about equal amounts of carrot and onion, but the nice thing about dishes that are not baking, you don't have to be super precise. You can add a little bit more of one thing or a little bit less of another and it will still be good. Okay, so add the carrots. One more pinch of salt. That will help draw out the moisture in the vegetables a little bit and also season the vegetables. It cooks into the vegetables so that you don't just have salt on the outside. I think that my cats smell the sea vegetables and they want to have some. Okay, so my arame has been rehydrated and then I drained the water. And now I'm going to slice it into bite-sized pieces. Otherwise you'll get very, very long threads, which sometimes you might want like in a noodle dish, but in this case I think does not need to be they don't need to be very long. Arame is high in a lot of minerals like iodine, iron, calcium. It has been used in Asian cuisine for a long, long time, especially in Japan. It's a Pacific sea vegetable. Look how pretty that looks when you add all those colors together. And now one more thing that I suggest you do is drizzle in a little bit of water, and that way you can steam that a little bit. And I think I'm going to grab a lid too. Trying to decide if I'm going to season this now or later. I think I'll put a little seasoning on now. And this only needs to cook for maybe a minute or two longer. So this month I've been giving different lessons on sea vegetables because I get asked questions about what do you do with all the different sea vegetables. I get asked that question sometimes. And so this is one of my favorite dishes. You can serve it as a side dish if you're making a sushi dinner, or even brown rice and some kind of beans. If you're making a very simple vegetarian meal, if you have this on the side, it adds a lot of nutrients. It makes your meal a lot heartier. A lot of times vegan meals can be too light and we end up wanting to snack on things or eat a lot of desserts because we're not getting nourished during our meals. So this is an example of a very nourishing vegan and vegetarian side dish that you can make very quickly. Some other sea vegetables that I cooked with this month, and you can go back on YouTube or on Facebook to see the other videos, is I made a miso soup with wakame. Wakame is a very nutritious sea vegetable as well. It's very good for reproductive health. It's good for the skin and hair, just like all the other sea vegetables. And good for the kidneys. All sea vegetables are considered good for the kidneys because they help with the mineral balance in your body, making your body a little bit more alkaline, which is almost always what we need, is to counteract acidic effects from our environment, from our foods and drinks, even from water. Water can be very acidic. If you drink carbonated water or city water, there's a lot of acidity in there. And then the week before the miso soup with wakame, I know we did another sea vegetable. Do you remember what we did, Nelson? Oh, it was, we did a creamy cauliflower soup with dulse. D-U-L-S-E. Spell check always changes it to D-U-L-C-E, like the Spanish word dulce, but it's dulce with an S. And add a little bit more seasoning, and that is it. But we made the dulce by just pan frying it very quickly with a little olive oil in the pan. And dulse is an Atlantic seaweed that the Native Americans used in their diet and probably in their agriculture too, growing things. It was from the North Atlantic off the coast of Maine and Canada. Probably was more widespread back in the day. But it almost tastes like bacon when you pan fry it. So go ahead and check that out. Also, my creamy cauliflower soup recipe. I'm going to be putting this recipe on my blog in the next 24 hours or so. But you can serve this alongside sushi, alongside brown rice, or any kind of whole grain. I've had this wrapped into bread. Have you had that before, Nelson? It's so good, where it's like put inside bread and then you slice it and it has the sea vegetable inside. This very thing, onions and arame, or onions and carrots and arame. So you can get very creative with how you serve it. I've also, this morning, I had some left over from when I made it the other day, and I put it in my miso soup right at the end. After I put everything else in, I just dropped it in to warm it up. And I was so surprised at how delicious it was. And then Nelson told me that he's had that when he lived in Japan. So I'm just going to garnish this to make it look a little prettier with some green onion. And I think we'll be ready to go. So I hope you will try arame. I know one thing I didn't say, because I've almost forgotten, is that I used to not like seaweed because I had never had it before. I just assumed that I wouldn't like it. But I started eating it about 16 years ago, actually. And the more I tried it, the more I liked it. And now I just love it. I could eat bowls and bowls of it. I think that your body kind of knows what it needs. And a lot of times, you know, things that are really good for us, once we eat them a few times, it just tastes better and better because it feels so nourishing. So I hope you will try making the arame dish. You can find it in Asian markets, but also I'm able to get it at my local stores, Central Market, Wheatsville, and I think Whole Foods. And of course, you can find it online. But just try to get a good quality. Don't get the cheapest, biggest bag, because that's probably not the best quality. Get a smaller bag that says that it's, you know, I'm not sure exactly what it says on it, but usually it says organically grown, which means they're not going to have any chemicals in it as far as they can control. So enjoy your arame, and I will see you here next week for another Cooking Together Live. We'll probably be doing some fun recipes to get ready for Valentine's Day. Take care.